here. So I've been uncertain about what next to do a video on. And I've been kind of overwhelmed with all the things I want to do a video on. There's so much. There's so much on and Bosch and Twitter and yeah, a lot. There's a lot. But then this thing happened. This Will Smith slapping Chris Rock thing happened. And I've had thoughts about it. I've had a lot to think and mull over, and the thing about it that really stands out, or one of the things, is how, well, the first thing I thought of when I saw it, clips of it, because I was not watching the Oscars. I learned about it through headlines that were coming in as notifications on my phone. And after watching it, one of the first things I thought of was how it reminded me of this story that I remember hearing on Jake and Amir's podcast, If I Were You. And this was my first thought, and it's just so interesting to see how people are reacting to this. And it's a little different, but okay, so Jake and Amir, they're like the famed YouTubers that had a series by the same name on YouTube through College Humor, and I'm a longtime fan. And they have a podcast. They've had it since, I don't know, 2013, I think. And it's called If I Were You. And they had an episode where I should have done a little bit more research, because I need to know that I should be able to refer you to the episode. Let me look. Wow, I found the perfect thing, actually. Okay, let me explain. So the episode that I'm referring to is episode 155. It's called Carpets, and the guest is Rose McIver, who is in iZombie, with that cretin misogynist guy who I used to like, and so many people have gone that path, and mostly it's guys who I thought were cool, and then something would happen where they got Me Too'd, or they Me Too'd themselves, and they were not officially Me Too'd, but I just found out they were a creep. So many guys. But yeah, so what's his face? Rahu Cahill or something? He was her co-star, and yeah, he's a huge bleeding misogynist, but that's not relevant. The relevant thing is Rose. Rose is like a friend of Jake and Amir's, sort of. I don't know about now. Oh, and also she does the intro and outro to their podcast, and all of their networks' podcasts. She says something like, "You are listening to a head." That sounds wrong. It's what is it? It's like, "You are now listening to Headgum," but in her Kiwi accent. She's from New Zealand, I'm pretty sure. Anyway, so she was a guest on whatever number episode I just said, and during her episode, Amir shared a story. This was her second, maybe third appearance. I think she's been on 3, maybe 4 times even. And this was second or so. And so they're friends at this point, and he's relaying the story to her where, and I'll add it here, but I'm going to do the briefest synopsis, or summary. Basically, Amir, or Jake pantsed Amir, pants is when you pull someone's pants down. It's a guy thing. I don't generally like to gender generalize, but there are, I mean, I should say I didn't used to, but there are a lot of things that are overwhelmingly done by guys, and then things that are overwhelmingly done by girls, and that's just life. And this pantsing thing, very much an overwhelmingly guy thing to do. I'm sure women have done it, girls have done it, but it's not as common. In my personal experience, I've never seen a girl do this to a girl, or heard of a girl doing this to a girl, whatever. The point is, just sort of randomly, they're hanging out in LA where they live, and I think, yeah, Jake pantses Amir, just randomly. He's like, I don't think he's ever done this before, and then he's like embarrassed, Amir's embarrassed, and then they're like out walking about. I think the first time he did it, they were at a party. They were like at a friend's house. And then they're like out and about together, walking the streets of LA to some destination, I guess, obviously. And then Jake does it again, because this is the most hilarious thing to him, because inside a lot of guys is like a third grader. Like a 9-year-old. And he does it again, but in the street this time. And then Amir, so Amir, like, the first time he's embarrassed, but he's with friends, but it's it's just so shocking, whatever. And he just, like, plays it off, sort of just pulls up his pants, it's cool. Doesn't expose him all the way, by the way, it's just the pants that come down, not the undies. And then, he just brushes it off. Then, so the second time in the street, when Jake does this again, Amir, his reaction is just so, if you know of them, if you listen to them, really, it was surprising when I heard Amir just, like, unleashed a, like, fury of fists. And his reasoning was like this very quick thinking of like, I need to make him know that this is not okay. I need to communicate with. He's like such a non-physical, non-confrontational guy, Amir, and he's like what one might call a nerd, in a like a palatable way, not a like antisocial way exactly. But he's not a violent guy, as far as I know, and I think I know that pretty well. I don't know him, obviously, but you get a sense of them, in the podcast format. He's not a violent guy. So this was like, whoa, to hear. And he was even wowed by his reaction. That's why he was retelling it. And he just unleashed this fury of fists. And I'm gonna play it. I'll just show you. And the thing that I was saying was perfect. One of the cool things I found. Someone made an isolated little like animated thing that they do this to some podcasts sometimes. When like there's a really funny story on various podcasts where a guest or whoever tells a story on, I think I've seen one from Dane Cook's podcast or something. I've seen one from Dane Cook's stand-up, whatever. People do this. They animate like stories, comedians, or tell like funny stories. So a fan did this to this story. So there's a clip just of this story. So I will include it here.
Did you know that, we can talk about this. I wanted to talk about this on the show. Jake did something recently that made me hit him a lot.
Hit him?
Yeah, like I snapped.
Really?
Yeah, can you not imagine that? Can you guess what? You're not going to be able to. But there's something that he did that made me so mad that I hit him over and over.
Was it domestic or out in the public?
It was out in public. That's a great question, because it actually happened twice. Once domestically and then the other one out and about. And I lost it.
Did he say something bigoted?
No, it was not anything that he said. It was something that he did to me that sent this shockwave throughout my entire system, and I felt like I had to hit him a lot.
Did he tickle you?
It was close to tickling me. That's a good guess.
It was sort of like a big brother thing.
Yeah.
Oh, you noogie?
Close. Getting really closer.
pinched his bum.
Oh, even you're inches away at this point.
Oh. I might pass.
I washed his asshole.
He pantsed me, and I was wearing gym shorts, so like, loose drawstring shorts, and he yanked it down to my ankles in one fell swoop, and I was just hairy-legged in this my friend's living room with my underwear.
And
Was
no one
that
really saw, though. It was
And nobody
one
saw.
person saw.
Yeah, and we laughed. Ah, ha, ha, look at Amir.
You
So
didn't
that was
laugh
the
that
first
much.
instance.
That was the first instance.
The
Then
first
an hour
instance.
later, we're walking around L.A. Jake, while I was walking away from him, pulled down my pants again all the way down to my ankle. So I was just in the street in my underwear.
The thing I would take you to task about, Jake, is that it was just too close to the first time.
Yeah. Well, he was just going to
For humor.
I think one of the things that triggered to me was like, I have to do something or else he's just going to keep doing it. Imagine if someone yanked off your pants in the street and laughed. Like, what are you supposed to do?
I'm proud of you. You stood up for yourself.
It was a lesson.
Did you laugh at all while it was happening? Did you have any of that like ha 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 while you hit him?
We were both smiling, but
It was a nervous smile. I was like, oh shit, what's going to happen now?
Yeah, that's terrible. I'm so sorry. I'm so sorry, and good luck to you.
Thank you so much.
And so you heard it. Now you've heard it and seen it because it's a video. So I hope that it's okay that I include that. And yeah, I just thought that's perfect. I don't have to edit it. I could just show it, but I will refer to you if you want to refer you to the episode, as I already did. If you want to just listen to the whole episode to get full context and further, there might have been more comments before and after that. About the incident, but I don't think so. I don't remember this. It's been years since I listened to that particular episode, but it stuck with me because it's so unlike Amir, and it made me think about. Well, it made me think about male violence patterns and just that thing of male physicality. Violence feels harsh, but that's what it is. It's violence, but it's, sometimes violence is warranted, right? That's like the point. That's kind of the point of this video is questioning that. When is violence warranted? And this thing in men is, but women do it too. There's plenty of like shows where women physically fight each other, so it's definitely not an exclusively male thing. Though I do think males do it more. They get physical more, like physically violent more, I should say, or specify. So yeah. So Amir, like, he explains, basically he just had this thing in him in the moment where he's like, I have to communicate with my good friend Jake, who's done this twice now, embarrassed me twice now, in this weird way. He's never like done this before. I think he says that either in the clip or he says that outside of the clip further in the episode, that it was just so weird because this is not like a thing Jake does. And so his reaction was in a sense weird, which was physical violence, which was to punch him. And I remember even too, Jake at some point in the episode, or no, maybe it was Rose who was like, I wonder what would have happened if Jake had hit you back. And then Jake or one of them said, oh, well then it would have been really serious. I should say, because if you just listen to the clip and no more, because I'm pretty sure that was outside of the clip, Jake did not retaliate. He like understood he deserved it. And I'm not even sure if I made it very clear, but you heard the clip, so you know Amir's thinking here was, I have to communicate this efficiently. He can't keep doing this to me. And so this is how I communicate that, with my fists. And he punched him hard to say, don't do this. And because you're embarrassing me, and this is wrong, and I can't say that in words. So I'm going to say that with my fists. And he did, and it worked. And so yes, so back to Chris versus um, will. That's what I thought of, and I just thought of how men communicate when they're embarrassed. I thought of how, to some degree, this is normal, and then I also thought about what really, like, okay, so at some point in the past, I remember watching this Jordan Peterson clip, which I will also look up. That's going to be harder to find, I feel like, because, like, how am I don't even remember. There's so many random clips of him. But I swear, there's a clip where he's talking about men and how men have this understanding. And I think he was making a point that women don't have this understanding because he's a bit of a misogynist, and so are his fans. But I think he was saying something like, men have an understanding that disrespect or an argument, a verbal argument, can always escalate to physical violence. So men are like more aware of this, and so they, I don't know, they go into altercations knowing this. This is like understood that this could get physical. Men have like this social contract, this understanding. I think he was saying something like that, and that, but then when a man is arguing with a woman, that is not the case. It's not this equal. We can't argue really on equal footing with women, was I think his point, because we're not supposed to hit women. So it's like a lost cause, or he was like advising men not even argue with women because, you know, women be crazy, basically. And they can make you do things and that are very illegal, and I don't know. So yeah, I think he was advising men not to argue with women because they don't have that social contract or whatever, which is, I don't know about all that, because men sure fight a lot, even though they're supposed to be aware of the social contract. But maybe, I think he was saying basically that men have this understanding about the possibility of physical violence when disrespected or arguing or whatever, and they can't have that with men, or sorry, they can't have that with women for, you know, kind of obvious reasons. It's just not okay to hit women for obvious reasons. But, you know, that crowd is also very, if she, you know, they're very pro hitting women on that side.
You know, this is something my wife has pointed out too. She said, well, men are going to have to stand up for themselves, but here's the problem. I know how to stand up to a man who's unfairly trespassing against me. And the reason I know that is because the parameters for my resistance are quite well defined, which is we talk, we argue, we push, and then it becomes physical. Right? Like if we move beyond the boundaries of civil discourse, we know what the next step is. Okay, that's forbidden in discourse with women. And so I don't think that men can control crazy women. I really don't believe it. I think that they have to throw their hands up in it's not even disbelief. It's that there's no step forward that you can take under those circumstances, because if the man is offensive enough and crazy enough, the reaction becomes physical right away, or at least the threat is there. And when men are talking to each other in any serious manner, that underlying threat of physicality is always there, especially if it's a real conversation, and it keeps the thing civilized to some degree. You know, if you're talking to a man who wouldn't fight with you under any circumstances whatsoever, then you're talking to someone to whom you have absolutely no respect. But I can't see any way. For example, there's a woman in Toronto who's been organizing this movement, let's say, against me and some other people who are going to do a free speech event, and she managed to organize quite effectively. And she's quite offensive, you might say. She compared us to Nazis, for example, which, you know, publicly, using the swastika, which wasn't really something I was all that fond of. But I'm defenseless against that kind of female insanity, because the techniques that I would use against a man who was employing those tactics are forbidden to me.
So yeah, it's just really interesting, and it really stuck with me and got me thinking at that time about men and their socialization patterns and their innate mental or problem solving norms and patterns. And then when the story so the story with Amir that happened, and then I saw the thing with Peterson, and it got me to think about the story with Jake and Amir. And then this also got me to think about both of those, about Jake and Amir, but yeah, about both of those things. And it's just all very interesting, and I don't know. I like, so my immediate reaction is to think that you don't hit, especially not in that setting. And then the other part of me goes, oh, but he was defending his wife. So good. But then the other part of me is like, or another part of me is like, well, actually, this doesn't contradict anything. It's just, this is the part where I learn other people's opinions, and it seems like a big part of the people who are like, Will is wrong. A lot of them are like coming from a place of, to put it very bluntly, the issue a lot of people have with Will's actions seems to stem from not believing that Jada is worthy. That's not really putting it bluntly. I was gonna say they think she's a whore. That's what literally, I won't say who, but someone in my family said that. So, and then people online, a lot of them are saying very similar things. And it's like, it's devastating internally, but I'm also very, very used to misogyny, and it's so painful that it's just throw your hands up time, you know? It's just everywhere, from every side, this just dehumanizing of women, thinking they deserve less if they are sexually too available or sexually inappropriate. And that's a pretty subjective thing. So yeah, it's sad, quite painful, very frustrating to read, but I reached this point after reading comments, like, it got so intense, so like, it's like, the more videos I watched, the meaner it got, until I found Candace Owens' take on it, which is just the wrong space to even be in, but it was so fitting for her, because she's so, her whole thing, which is like kind of a thing of the right in general, their like whole philosophy is like, woman bad, man good, and everything serves that idea. So her take was basically that Jada is a manipulative narcissist, and that Will is the victim in a sense. And I saw that a lot. I saw that in other comments sections for random videos. It's a pretty popular type of comment to leave, pretty popular theory. And it just brought me back to the whole, well, for me, the Meghan Markle thing, which is an interesting thing, because I'm pretty sure our philosophies will not align when it comes to TWAW ideology. But I have been an observer of her mistreatment from day one of her and Harry being leaked as dating. I remember being on Facebook where people with their full government names were British people, English people with their full government names were saying, she's just like exotic Fanny, this is not going to go anywhere, but imagine an English accent. And they were so certain that I was like, oh, okay, I guess if they know best. Because they kept harping on how she was a divorcee, and this is just not done. This is just him dating. He's, playing the field. People don't even worry. Who cares? And I was like, is it really a big deal? And, like, she looks so... I mean, this shouldn't even be a thing, but I did think, like, she looks so she looks almost fully white, which is kind of disgusting. But that was the thing. People were like, she's not fit, quote unquote. They were like alluding to her being too black. Like, and it was such a thing that even I remember Philip DeFranco made a video about the racist backlash towards Harry's girlfriend when it was again just leaked, because she was too black, and that, you know, racism is not logical. So of course, to a white racist, she's black enough to not be one of us. So yeah, even though now they'll like backtrack and say, oh, we loved her from day one. Some people did, but the ones who like hate her so vehemently now, they never did. The point I'm trying to make is that they use the same rhetoric, and this is just a type of rhetoric that I think follows women. And I was gonna say especially women of color, but I don't even know if that's true. I don't know, because I've seen it with every like race of woman where this type of accusation of like narcissist, self-centered, selfish, got him by the balls. This kind of she's emasculated him. I mean it's following. This is how people are describing Jada now. This is how people describe Megan. And I've seen people, I mean, not quite the same language, but there's just a whole bevy of women that people have attacked in these very specific kind of like female specific ways. And it's just so when I was seeing that language used on Jada, I was like, oh, here it goes again. Why does it feel so familiar? Because this is what I see with Megan all the time. And I mean so it's an interesting thing. It's like weirdly her and like J.K. Rowling's I always feel like I'm saying it should be Rowling, but Rowling feels right. I don't know. JKR, they it's not the same exactly, but it's the same level of ire, the same like intense hatred for JK, for Megan, for Jada now, for Allison Brie, for Hannah Gadsby, for Lacey Green, for Francesca Ramsey. Just saw Lily Singh. I like made a list once of the women I noticed get highly and harshly persecuted for minor crimes, even like non-crimes, and they get so harshly persecuted, and it's part of this larger pattern in our world of women getting vilified intensely and very easily. Like I just saw a comment too, back to Jada, I just saw a comment where someone just legit said something they've been kind of saying, and this is the thing, like the men, well, for these two, because these two are partnered with men, and so it's like there's such a deep male worship thing in people, and a deep misogynistic misogyny thing in people, that people are like uncomfortable hating men, like even when they do the harshest thing, like the Queen Elizabeth, just yesterday she brought out Andrew. So I just imagine, alleged sexual assaulter Andrew. So I just imagine all of I mean, you don't even have to be English, but all of the English girls who've ever been, sexually assaulted, just seeing that, how he can just do that, and just mommy pays the bill, or he paid it, whoever, she probably helped, and she's still mommy's favorite, and she trots him right out. And I know it was his dad's memorial, but he could have been a little more out of sight, or just done his remembrance on his own. Like, this is a televised thing. You can honor your father privately. You don't have to physically be on camera. You're a public thing. You're a public entity, and when you're part of the BRF, I should call it BARF. Um, I'm sorry, actually. I'm not sorry. They're awful. That was such a gross move. And I know a mother's love is unconditional. That part I get, but he's a part of this. He's a publicly funded person too. He's not just a private citizen. Like, your people, British people, are paying for him to live in just really gross, over the top privilege, and you're trotting him out, and he's done this horrible thing. He was besties with a sex trafficker, and he knew, and that was his friend, and then he partook in, this sounds gross, but the wares. He he traumatized a child. A 17-year-old is a child, and he partook in his friend's thing, and then he just gets to, I don't know, throw some money at the situation. He lied in that interview saying he didn't even know her. Then the picture surfaced, and then he just gets the money away the situation. Money that, came from the people's pockets. It's like, that's so sickening. And these things happen back to back, and you'd think, I don't know why you would think this, but you would hope on paper the 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 publicly funded uh, sexual assaulter of a minor, of a trafficked teen, would be the thing everyone's talking about. But the male on male violence in America is the thing everyone's talking about, and it was just a slap too. And it really speaks volumes. Oh, the point I was trying to get at though is people have such a harsh, not harsh, people have such a, like, intense struggle, like it's a fight in within to, like, hate a man, to just properly, fully condemn a man. So, like, Andrew shows us that because people seem to not want to condemn him. It's like barely a finger wag of discipline from the people, and then, like, but back to Megan and how she was touching her pregnant belly. That's the real crime. And then, like, for Will's thing, where I'm saying this is, like, people don't. I mean, yes, they are condemning him because they kind of have to. Sometimes it's just too impossible to not, like, you look too crazy if you're just like, if you just immediately go to, it's Jada's fault. But a lot of people are going to the old misogynistic well of, it's Jada's fault. It's like old times. Like, she's a witch. She bewitched him with that look when she didn't find the joke funny. She gave him a look. There isn't even footage of her giving him a look, but she did look disapproving of the joke, which is her right. She should be able to be honest about her reaction. I thought, in the moment, that's beautiful. She didn't fake a laugh. She didn't like it, and yeah, but yes, then, in like, the very first time I saw it, I'm like, oh, I'm so glad she didn't fake a laugh, because so many women are conditioned to fake laughs when something they don't like is said, as a quote unquote joke, and then what turned into Will getting up, and yeah, so people are already doing that. People are already blaming her, because, again, I think people are very uncomfortable disliking a man, and so it's like there's this need to, like, it's not his fault, it's her fault. She's the bad one. Blame her. She's the witch. Get the witch. Burn the witch. And okay, then I was gonna say earlier, I saw this comment. Maybe I'll screenshot if I can find it again, where someone just straight up says, like, I will only like him if he divorces her. I will only like him again if he divorces her. Something like that. And it had, like, over 100 likes. And I'm like, there it is. I mean, really, the there it is when I saw someone call her a whore, and a whore who doesn't have any honor, so is not worth protecting. That's the there it is. But the other there it is, for the like waiting for the mask off moment of what this is, like what it would take for people to like will again. Because I'm like, because people just keep talking and talking about this, and so yeah, I was wondering what would it take. And then someone just says, yeah, if he divorced her, then I would like him again. I think that would get him liked again by a lot of these people. So just the connection here to Peterson is just, it's like there is an understanding, and if we were having this conversation in like a more neutral, unconnected to this event, I think a lot of men, especially the men who are hating on Jada and Will the hardest, and women too probably, would agree with that idea that Jordan Peterson pushed, that men have an understanding that physical violence is always a thing. And he even says something like, if you're talking to a man who there's nothing you would get violent over, what did he say? Like, if something like, if you're talking to a man, if you're a man and you're talking to a man, and I'm way paraphrasing and butchering, might I add, but he's like, if you're talking to a man and you wouldn't fight him over anything, then you don't really respect him, which is, debatable, but he said it and a lot of guys agreed with it, and I think in most settings they would. But then when like it actually is happening, when Will is in that situation, I know it's a little different to be pantsed than to have your, but it elicits the same feeling as the thing. It's still a humiliating feeling. So having his wife joked about, made fun of for alopecia or for her head, when it seems like from what people are saying, Will told Chris not to make fun of Jada, especially because like not last year, many years ago, back when Jada stuck her neck out for Will, and like did the whole, like she spearheaded the Oscar So White thing because Will wasn't like nominated for, he was like snubbed. He wasn't even nominated for his performance in I forgot what it's called, but it was the movie about CTE and American football, and apparently the performance was really great, but he didn't get accolades at all, or he didn't get even acknowledgement at all. Certainly not accolades. And so she like did the Oscar So White, and I vaguely remember there were people who agreed, because there were like so few black Oscar winners, and it was like kind of crazy to be able to count them, how few there'd been, and so they did kind of what's the word, boycott the Oscars, black artists sorta. But Chris was like, so that year they got Chris to host. Almost, it felt connected. It felt like, oh, we're not so white, look at the host. So Chris like crossed the metaphorical picket line, and he there's a word for that, but I won't say it. But yes, he did, and he hosted, and he not only hosted, but he made a joke that he, at Jada's expense, about, well, you're not even invited, was basically the point of the joke. So I should say too, full disclosure, at the end of this year, I do have my biases. I have a bias. I don't like Chris Rock. He's a misogynist. He cheated on his wife. And ever since he cheated on his wife, or more, ever since he got divorced, not the cheating, ever since he got divorced, his comedy has become very anti-woman. He's the one, like, I kept seeing guys, I was arguing with these misogynists here and there all over the internet, and they kept saying this thing, only women, children, and dogs are unconditionally loved, but men have to work for love. And they have to like always be providing something to be loved. And in a climate of, so that's not true. That's just, it's objectively not true. There are so many women who are discarded very easily, children who are abused, animals. Did I say that? Was that on the list? Only he said women, children, and pets. Did I say dogs or something? I can't remember. But yeah, so all three of those groups, though, are objectively not unconditionally loved. And if anything, there's more proof to show that men are closer to unconditionally loved. They can do literally heinous acts and still have a fan base and still be beloved. They can be openly misogynistic, a la Eminem, and still be beloved. They can do what Andrew did and still be beloved and defended, especially when the opposite, like, people use him as a, like, as a superior man to Prince Harry. Like, they look, because Prince Harry is tied to, you know, evil witch Meghan Markle. So they'll say, like, well, maybe he did X, Y, and Z, but at least he's not as traitorous as has been. They'll say stuff like that. So that's, and I know that sounds like it's a dig on Harry, but it's only because of Meghan. So it's really misogyny, because I 1,000,000,000,000% believe, because they've said this, they've written this is, I don't know if I ever connected that, but they've said, you know, I wish he would just divorce her about Harry and Meghan. And I'm sure if he did the really gross thing of divorcing and abandoning his wife and children, he would be welcomed back into the fold by many. And if he and that's the, like, scary, powerful thing. He can just say, I think he could literally say, she's a witch, she put a curse on me, and a significant number of royalists, crazy idiots would believe that. Or even if they didn't, they would go, okay, whatever you're saying, I don't care. I just like that you're against her too now. That's how hated women are. That's how strong it is. And so, knowing that, well, I mean, Harry didn't do anything bad, but, like, so Andrew, you got O.J. Simpson, you got, I'll even say it, Kobe fucking Bryant, because he did that shit. You have so many people so many men who've done heinous things, and they're so beloved still. It doesn't matter. And so it's like, actually, men are closer to experiencing something like the universal unconditional love, because they can do almost anything, and maybe even anything, because I would have thought maybe, like, okay, the line would probably be the P word that, you know, all those priests did, the Catholic priests did, and then, like, no, because the Catholic priests were, like, defended and protected, so and it didn't, like, really dampen Catholicism, right? So, like, there kind of isn't anything a man can do to, like, really lose love. And people seem to always be fighting some internal, I don't know, curse to, like, not worship men. It's like this curse of, like, or this spell of worshiping men, and this curse of hating women at the drop of a hat. I always knew, too, like, first, okay, well, I don't want to get into all of that, but you know what? I will get into it. I always felt that Hillary never stood a chance against Donald Trump, like, when they were running against each other, because I know the pulse of my people, my species. I know, like, since I was a kid, I always knew, I was always around reinforcement that people just, they don't like women, they don't like girls. Women are just, like, subconsciously really hated. They look down on them. They don't see them as leaders. They think their interests are stupid. They think that their thoughts are dumb, and everything they're into is bad. So I always knew, if, like as bad as Donald Trump was, and as better than him objectively, as objectively better than Trump as Hillary was, bad raising, but you get me, she didn't stand a chance. She would have to be perfect, and even she would have to be an A plus, and even then it would be a struggle, because I know people, I'll just say, I know people who have said they would never let a woman be president. They would never vote for a woman. They don't care how good she is. So, knowing it so well, I thought, and she's not a perfect woman, so a woman, she only needs to be like one negative adjective to be like strongly, deeply, profoundly, more redundancy, hated, so hated. It's so easy, it's so quick. The triggering in people to hate a woman is like that. Like I'm trying to snap. It's like the drop of a hat. It's so easy to. It's just that's why I call it a curse. It feels like a curse. It seems like a curse, and it seems like a spell. The thing that makes people not want to hate men and fight it so hard, even when they do hateable things, where like they can overwhelm, they can over, or what am I trying to say? They can dominate in offensive acts like violent acts, sexually predatory acts, and it doesn't really besmirch them as a sex. Like people think of bitches be crazy, people think of, hoes ain't loyal, stuff like that, and it like seeps into the zeitgeist and the culture. But men can be as violent as anything and dominate it in every culture, every race, everywhere. And it doesn't really, it's like, oh, but not all men. And women still overwhelmingly adore men. And if you look into the spaces where women are and men come up, it's like praise and love and adoration. And then like spaces, there's like no such thing anywhere, I don't think. Certainly not online, where it's overwhelmingly men, it's dominantly men. Women come up as a topic and there are positive things being said. It's like just like any Joe Rogan comment section, any comment section of a video where a woman is being hit, just anywhere where it's male dominant, if women come up, it's overwhelmingly negativity. Like just at base level, men do not like women. It's weird, but it's true. Like men do not they do not respect women. And yeah, so how is that? Well, it's connected to all this because that's part of what's fueling this. People have this deep hatred for Jada, so they're being extra harsh. And, when Amir did that to Jake, I know it's a different sort of thing, but it's like similar to, and I know the base, who the story was told to is a bit different because it was their fans, and fans are going to be biased as fans, but still, there was a reaction of understanding that, and this is just a big part of why there's a serious lack of understanding with so many, I think. I know from what they say, but I also suspect from those who aren't saying, they don't feel she's worthy of that. They don't. And then I feel like I've connected these things, but I'm trying to connect them again. It's also the thing of like the way males think that is kind of normal, which I think might have some merit, even though Peterson said it in a misogynistic way that encouraged misogyny. There is something to that idea that men understand, if you disrespect me, this can turn physical, and so many men in the comments agreed. And there's truth to that, though. There is an understanding when you're disrespectful, when you humiliate someone, it can get physical. But all that goes out the window when they agree with the person who got hit and they don't agree with the hitter. And if it had been, well, maybe I shouldn't say that, but I think if people, I was going to specify if it had been specific people, but I won't. But I do think that if they had liked Jada more, and maybe if some races were swapped, the reaction wouldn't be as intense. The ire for Will and Jada, for both of them, wouldn't be as intense, I don't think. So I guess in conclusion, I think people are overreacting, and I think race is a little bit why, and I think Jada and misogyny is a bit more why. And I get the instinct of, no, we don't hit, just like basic parent instinct, basic like civilized society instinct, we don't hit. But it's just, I've seen it so often. I've seen men get into fights over disrespect. So, and it was just a slap, it wasn't a punch, which I know it's like, to some people there's no distinction. Then that's when it does feel a little bit like race is like, a punch is quite different from a slap, and a slap is not as bad, and a slap is, I don't know, like, there's just a way guys handle each other that I'm kind of used to, so it didn't feel like, oh my gosh, but it did feel, oh my gosh, for the setting. That was the thing. You don't do that on stage at the Oscars. But yeah, so I don't know, I do think people are overreacting. I do, and I think people are overreacting because a lot of people are, I think most people are misogynists. I think, I want to say I think all people are misogynists, just like I think, just on a subconscious level, everyone kind of is. Everyone kind of looks down on women, sees women as lesser. I mean, we live in our country, but yes, my country is America. So that's what I'm referring to. But even in like England, in other countries, we have our father's surname. Like, that, just that alone does something. You know, that's your culture. That does something to you subconsciously, to know you have your dad's last name, and pretty much everyone you know has their dad's last name. It communicates something subconsciously about who's in the power position in your culture, and who you're supposed to look up to, and who is the dominant one. And I think low-key, subconsciously, everyone is a little bit misogynistic. I like to think I'm not, because I'm too aware to be. But I probably even have some, like, deep-seated, because I know I had them when I was younger, a little bit, and I like, shocked myself with some stuff I thought. I like to think it's all pretty much eradicated, but there's probably remnants. And I guess that's all I wanted to say. People are overreacting. Jada's not a whore. They have an open relationship. Will admitted to cheating on her as well. And he's slept with other women. This is what works for them. I could never do it, but this is what works for them. They choose each other every time, as I've commented in many an argument I've had online already, all over YouTube. He's left a woman who's had his child before, so this idea that she's just manipulating him into staying is absurd, because he has a son with his first, possibly, wife. I'm not sure if they were married, but he has a son with her, and he left her. They parted. So he could leave. He could find anyone else. And he chooses not to. It's his choice. This thing with Harry, with Prince Harry, with Will, it's this thing people do because they don't want to hold men accountable, and they love them too much. It's the worship. They're like, so it's not really his fault. It's the evil witch's fault. Put the curse on him. So that's happening quite a bit here. So yes, people are overreacting. People are overreacting. Yep. And that's really all I wanted to say, I think. So thank you for listening to my semi-coherent thoughts, and I hope to make another video soon. I hope to be able to hone in and pick something, just pick one thing to focus on and do a video about, because there's so much. Okay, thank you. Goodbye.